There we go. Now, can you hear and see me? Okay, I forgot to click unmute. But good morning. Welcome to week number 2. We're here for my intro psych classes. Okay, good. I'm getting some yeses. Hopefully now you can all hear and see me. Okay. But happy Tuesday morning. It's August 23rd. And we are in week number 2 of our 8-week class that we have together. So great. I get to see a lot of you joining me on here live, which is fantastic. I'm so glad so many of you are here. Thank you for joining me this morning. What I want to do today, I want to just go over some quick reminders that we have for week number 2. We're still in that first 1 and 2 week section of the class. We have our first exam this week. So what will happen is I want to go over a little bit about how to take the exam and a couple of tips and things like that. I'll, of course, give you your extra credit question that you have for the week to get those 2 points for joining me. So again, thank you for being here. And if you're watching this later, that's totally fine. Don't forget, if you have a moment to just double check, and I'm going to put this on here every week, but don't forget, if you can take a moment to just make sure that you are either putting your first and last name in the chat, or ideally, if you have subscribed to my Twitch channel for free. And remember, I've shown you a couple of times, and the instructions for that are on Canvas. Please don't ever pay for it. It should be something that's free for you, but it does help me incredibly. So thank you so much for all of you who have done that. It makes my life so much easier because I can just download a list of those of you who are here rather than having to find your name and highlight it. And if you're watching this later as a recording, if you are subscribed for free, that also allows me to track your attendance. So thank you for those of you who've taken the time to do that. I know it's a little confusing and it's a couple of steps, but thank you. Otherwise, let's go ahead and head over to Canvas together. And as I mentioned, we are in week number 2. So remember that last week our class started, and everything from weeks 1 and 2 is due by this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Okay, so everything from weeks 1 and 2 is due by that point. So just make sure that you are completing everything from this week and last week. If you haven't done the stuff from last week, make sure to get going on that. I was just bringing up my chat on my phone here. So if you take a look at this, if we click on week number 1, so for last week, remember your focus was on chapters 1 and 2, so the history and scope of psychology, and then looking at psychology as a science, how do we conduct research. You had 2 discussions for last week, and then an optional Twitch extra credit. As always, I posted the recording, which I'll do again today when we are done. This week, we move on to chapters 3 and 4, so looking at biological psychology, and then chapter 4 is sensation and perception. So make sure that you read chapter 3 in the ebook, and then also read chapter 4 in the ebook. You're going to want to, of course, read through the lecture that I created for you for chapters 3 and 4. Always going to follow that same format. So page 1 is objectives and summary. What are the things you will learn? Here's the little summary of the chapter. And you can listen to it if you miss the sound of my voice, or you can just read it. The second page is always going to be beyond the book. So in this one, I put a couple of little tutorials that might be really helpful for you. One of them is on the types of neurons, another one on action potentials and neurotransmitters. Here's a little video on the 10% myth, which might be really helpful for you for the discussion that goes with this chapter. The next page in pop culture, a couple of pop culture references for this. Probably the best one here is a little excerpt from The Walking Dead related to neurons way back in season 1 or 2 of the show. Season 1, the last episode of season 1. There's also a little video here about parts of the brain from an old show called The Animaniacs, and then a little bit about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge and how that relates to neurons. The 4th page, key terms and review. Here are all the terms that you need to know from chapter 3. And then on the last page, as always, here's some application. Now that you've read the chapter, here are some ways that you can apply it. So don't forget to read through the lecture for chapter 3 and 4, and then also be sure to watch the lecture video. So those are in substitution of me lecturing to you in person, and hopefully those will be really helpful for you in understanding the material. So you can benefit from watching those, maybe taking notes, especially on the key terms that you need to know. There's also 2 discussions for this week, as usual. So discussion number 3 and 4. If I open up discussion number 3 for a moment, this one is all about the 10% myth of the brain, a little bit about neurons and how they communicate. So remember with these discussions, always watch my little brief introduction video where I kind of go over that in some detail for you. Don't forget to answer all of my questions. That's worth up to 13 points and is really the bulk of your discussion grade. You're also going to want to read through at least 5 of your classmates' responses and reply to one of them. That peer response is worth 2 points, so don't forget to do that. Those 2 points will definitely add up. So in total, you can get 15 points for each discussion. And again, for chapter 3, you're looking at what are neurons and why are they important? How do neurons communicate with each other? And then you'll read these little articles that I have here about the 10% myth and describe the origins and 2 reasons why we know it's false and not something that is actually true. And don't forget to think about these as like little mini papers, okay? So you're going to want to really elaborate, show off your knowledge. When weeks 1 and 2 end this Sunday night, I will be grading these first 4 discussions and sending out some feedback. But I just want to give you that tip, something that I see a lot, right? Like make sure you're really elaborating. Just looking at these, they kind of look on the brief end here. These should be roughly a paragraph almost for each of the questions that I have for you. So just make sure that you're really showing off that knowledge and comprehension of the materials. Discussion number 4, the other one that you have for this week, is related to sensation and perception. So again, watch my little YouTube video that I have, answer all of my questions. This one you're going to be reading an article about smell and memories, and then doing a little experiment where you gather some materials and smell them and see what associations or memories might be coming up for you, and then writing about it and answering the questions below. So as usual, every week you'll have 2 chapters, 2 discussions, and then at the end of every 2-week section, you will have an exam. So we have our first exam that is due this week. So I want to spend a chunk of our time today talking about the exam to make sure that you feel as good about it as you possibly can. So for the exams, I've given you a study guide, right? So make sure that you're always looking at the study guide. It is your best friend when preparing for the exams. So if you click on study guide number 1 right here, it will open up a page. And what you'll see on this page are all the terms from chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 from this first 2 weeks that you need to know for the test. Now, if it's on this page, it will be on the exam. If it's not on here, you don't need to worry about it. You can let it go. But there's a bunch of terms from chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's also 2 diagrams that you'll want to make sure that you could label, and those will appear on the exam as well. So when I make the exam is based off of the reading from the textbook. It's based off of my 5-page lectures, and it's also based off of the lecture video that I've given you for each one of the chapters. And so you'll notice as you go through these, a lot of these terms are things that I cover in the lecture or in the chapter. Make sure that you can understand or answer a question about any of these. I will never trick you on a question or on the test. And if it's on here, again, make sure you know it. And if it's not on here, you don't need to worry about it. So it should be right here if we go back. It's under week number 2. So under week number 2, it's right under exam number 1 right here. So week number 2, if you scroll down, here it is, study guide number 1. Yep, in week number 2. And I'd like to point out to you, like if you're looking at this study guide, at the end of every lecture on that the 4th page, key terms and review, it has all of these terms listed, but all I've done with the study guide is put them together in one convenient spot for you. So if you wanted to study as you went along, like let's say you're like, okay, chapter 1, I'm reading that right now. I will prepare all the terms for chapter 1. If I go up here to week number 1 and I click on chapter 1 lecture, it's this 4th page. So the key terms and review page has all of those terms that are listed on the study guide right here. Okay, so that's all it is. The study guide is just those terms all put together. But you definitely want to be studying and preparing like you would for a traditional in-person test. And I think it's always better to over-prepare for the first exam because you don't know what to expect. You can always dial it back for the next one if you did a little too much, but you never want to have that moment where you're like, oh, I wish I had studied more. I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. And you've already started the exam. So if it were me, what I would do, and this is totally up to you, but I'm one of those like very meticulous straight A students who over prepares for everything. So what I would do if it were me is I would write or type out every single one of the terms on this study guide. I'd probably type it out, that's a little faster, and then I would have it in front of me when I go to take the exam. And what that means is, let's say I'm halfway into the test and I'm like, ooh, what was the all or none law, right? Instead of having to flip through the textbook, flip through the lectures, go through everything and try and find it, it'll be right there in front of you, and you can just flip to it in your notes and find it very easily. Now, hopefully you can answer questions about everything on here, but at least that way you can reference it very quickly and easily. If you're trying to look up every answer, you are going to run out of time. And that's a little bit purposeful. I do want you to study and prepare. It's plenty of time. The average time most people take on this exam is about 60 minutes, 59 to 62 minutes on average. But if you are trying to look everything up, I promise you it's going to be a little short on time. So try and make sure you've reviewed these, write them out, type them out, have them in front of you, whatever's easiest. But that's definitely a good way to go. Yes, you only get one attempt on the exam. So you want to make sure you're organized, ready, prepared, you've studied, you have a good quiet space to take the test, a good internet connection. Make sure you have all of those things before you begin. Okay, so once you are ready, once you have studied with the study guide, written those terms out, whatever it is that you've done to prepare, if you click on exam number 1, it's going to tell you, don't forget the exams are on the ebook site. So if you go to the ebook site and you log in, the exams are up here at the top where it says exams. And this is where you took that mandatory orientation quiz. So same spot, but that one's done. So we're going to scroll down from here. There's a little practice exam. This is just to get used to the format of the test. Remember, you have to save your answers and all of that. So if you want to practice with that, that could be a little bit helpful. But here are the instructions for exams 1 through 4. So let's look at these together for a moment. You have 75 minutes to complete the exam. And as I mentioned, about 60 minutes on average is what people typically take. You have all the way till 75 if you need it. If you have an access memo that gives you extra time, make sure you get that to me as soon as possible so I can get you all set up for that. But 75 minutes really should be plenty of time as long as you have studied and prepared and you're ready to go. You only get one attempt, so be ready and organized before you begin. Again, my best suggestion would be to make sure that you have a quiet space, you have good internet, you have your notes printed out in front of you, you're organized and ready to go. You can use your notes, you can use your book, you can use anything at your disposal. But as I mentioned a moment ago, if you're trying to look up the answers, I promise you, you're going to be very, very short on time. So make sure that you're not trying to look everything up, that you've prepared and studied. Don't forget to save your answers. Remember when I showed you on that mandatory orientation quiz, when you click save, it turns out like a gold or an orange color. You want to make sure everything is saved before you hit submit. The website will stop you when you run out of time, so be mindful of the time. There's that little clock in the upper left-hand corner. You can skip questions. If you don't know the answer, skip it. You can come back to it later, but just be mindful of your time. Leave yourself plenty of time to be successful. And when you're done, you'll click I am finished and submit it. You will get a grade instantly. So instantly you will know your score. Remember that score does not come over to Canvas. Okay, so what will happen is when the deadline passes this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m., I traditionally grade everything on Mondays. So Monday night, you should be able to see your score in Canvas. But if it doesn't come over, don't worry. Remember, you can always go up here and see your score in the gradebook on this site until I bring it over into Canvas. So just a couple other things that I would suggest. Please, I'm begging you, if you will, do not wait until Sunday night on this Sunday to take the exam. Okay, so you've had 2 weeks to take the test. Inevitably, it always feels like the law of the universe. The moment that you wait until Sunday night, your internet will crash, your computer will die, your power will go out, somebody will get sick, something will happen. So try and give yourself plenty of opportunities to be successful. Take it earlier in the week. Take it worst case Saturday, Sunday morning. That way, if something does happen, something crashes, you have the time to reach out to me and I can help address it with you. Please do not wait until the end. If you email me at 12:01 a.m. Monday morning and say, I forgot to take the test, there was a problem, it's going to be too late. If you email me at 11:58 p.m. Sunday night, I can still help you. But remember, I'm very strict about the deadline. So please make sure you plan ahead, take it early, set yourself up for success. There are 70 something questions on the exam. So you have roughly a minute or so per question. Several of them are true false questions. So those should be really fast. But again, if you don't know the answer, not a bad idea to skip it. And then you can always come back to it later on. Okay. Again, with the test, I will never trick you. If a question seems tricky or unclear, maybe try and read it again. I will never give you a trick question. Those are just silly. All it does is give you anxiety, and I will never do that to you. I want you to be successful. And I think these exams, honestly, are probably too easy. I probably should make them harder. If you've been doing reading and been following along and you prepare, there's no reason you won't do well. Most people score very well and very highly on these. And I would imagine that would be no exception this semester with all of you. So just make sure that you've studied, you're prepared, set yourself up for success, and you should be in a really good spot. Okay, so when you're ready, you'll scroll down here to where it says exam number 1, and you'll hit begin your attempt. And if I go up to the practice exam just for a moment here, which is right here, this is kind of that format that it will follow, right? So just as a quick reminder, I clicked on this one, but that's fine. So remember, there's a clock up here in the corner, and you can see there will be a list of questions. Now, there are quite a few more on exam number 1. There's like 70 something questions, but black means you haven't answered it yet. And if I want to skip, it shows up as gray that you skip that question so you can remember to go back to it. So for example, this one, which of the following is not true about your instructor? That I hate football. I love football. I'm obsessed, right? So then I would hit save answer, and it turns it that orange color. Okay. In order to maximize your success on the weekly discussions, you should do all of the above. Save answer. So you want to make sure all of them are that gold orange color. And then when you're done, you'll hit I am finished, submit for a grade. And again, you'll get a score right away, though it won't show up in Canvas until after the deadline is passed and I've brought all of the scores over. Okay. I think those are all the big things I want to say about the exam. I cannot stress enough, it is always a good idea to over prepare for the first exam. You want to make sure that you set yourself up for success. Make sure you've prepared everything on the study guide, write out those terms, type them out, whatever it is that's going to be helpful, and then review them a little bit, just like you would for a normal test. Okay, so by the end of this Sunday night, but we are finishing weeks 1 and 2. I've given you a little wrap-up checklist for every 2-week sections. So what you might want to do is just make sure you've done everything, that you've read chapters 1 through 4 in the ebook. You've read the lectures, you've watched the lecture videos. The mandatory orientation obviously has finished at this point. Oops, sorry, that date is old. I should change that. That you've completed the introductions discussion and discussions 1, 2, 3, and 4. You've completed exam number 1, and then you have the optional Twitch extra credit number 1 and number 2, where you can get those 2 points for joining me here live on Twitch. Okay, so those are all the things that you should be doing for weeks 1 and 2, which ends this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. And again, if you're watching this later as a recording, please make sure that you have subscribed if you'd like to get credit for the extra credit and answer the question here on Canvas. A couple of quick announcements, and then I'll see if you have any questions for me. Again, our streams will normally be more like a half hour or so. They were a little longer last week because it was the first one, but it'll normally be a little shorter. So a quick reminder, our next Twitch live stream will be on Tuesday, and I'm typing this here in the chat, and I'm not so great at typing. I will give you the extra credit question here in just a moment. So our next Twitch live stream will be on Tuesday, August 30th. So Tuesday, 8:30 at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, and so next week what will happen is I'll go over a little bit of feedback from weeks 1 and 2, since all of that will be graded at that point. And then we'll talk about what are some of the things that are due for weeks 3 and 4, specifically week 3. And then, of course, give you that extra credit question. So our next live stream will be next Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. The last thing I want to do, of course, is give you that extra credit question for today and show you where you can answer that. I wrote this out, so I'm going to put it, I'm going to copy and paste it into the chat. And this is something that might also be helpful a little bit in your discussion for discussion number 3, I believe it is. What is meant by electrochemical communication? I want you to describe both pieces of how neurons communicate with each other. So electrochemical, there's an electrical piece and a chemical piece. What are both of those made up of? Describe how neurons communicate and what is the electrical and chemical portion of that communication. And this is something that'll be helpful for the exam. It'll be helpful for the discussion for this week. And this is the Twitch extra credit number 2, since we are in week number 2. So if you go onto Canvas in week number 2, you'll click on optional Twitch extra credit number 2, and it's going to bring up this page. And it's a quick reminder here when you have to have joined me live in the stream, which you are right now, or be subscribed, which allows me to track your attendance and that you did watch it. And then you're going to answer this question here on Canvas. When you're ready, you'll hit Start Assignment up at the top, and that will bring up a text box where you can type your response. And this is due by Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. And you can still do the one from last week as well if you're subscribed, which allows me to see that you watched it. And when you're done, you'll hit Submit Assignment, and it'll give you a little confetti burst. And then I'll be grading these throughout the week. I try and kind of grade them as we go. So if you do this early and get it wrong, I will let you know, and you will have a chance to redo it. But remember, you have to have joined me live or be subscribed and then answer this question. And I really hope you all take advantage of this. If you do every single one of them, it is 16 points of extra credit, which would make up for a missed discussion or maybe a low discussion score, take a little bit of pressure off of one of your exams, or make up for maybe a lower exam score that you had. These should be really, really helpful for you. And they're also a great opportunity to review materials that will be on the exam. So just again, as a reminder, weeks 1 and 2 end this Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So make sure that you've completed everything that is under these 2 weeks. Big thing this week is exam number 1. If you have any questions, I will hang out for the next 10 minutes or so. You can put them in the chat. You can email me, of course, but I am here live if you wanted to ask me. So make sure that you study, prepare, set yourself up for success. And then our next Twitch live stream will be next week. Yeah, the exams are typically good. So last semester, the average score for exam number 1, I think, was an 88%. So it was a high B. And typically the first exam is always the hardest, right? You don't know what to expect. But as long as you study and prepare, you should be in wonderful shape. There's nothing tricky. It's very straightforward. And a couple of you have already taken the exam. There's been a few 100% already, and a lot of A's. So just make sure you study like you would for a normal test, and you should be in really, really good shape. Okay? Yeah, of course. No worries. So what I will do, as I said, is I'll hang out for a little bit here. If you have any questions, there isn't an audio version of the ebook, right? That would be really nice. If you need an audio version as part of access, so if you have accommodations and need it as a part of that access accommodation, you could always reach out to Access and see if there's anything they can do to help you with that. I know that we have done it in Braille for a student who was blind, and so I would imagine that there is something that you could do, or at least software that they have that would read it to you as well. I know that's definitely a possibility. Okay. So if you don't have any questions, you are welcome to take off. I hope you all have a wonderful week, a wonderful rest of your day. We're definitely getting closer to September, which is closer to October, which is practically Halloween, right? I went to my first spirit store over the weekend out in Thousand Oaks. I'm ready. I'm ready for Halloween. I'm decorated and ready to go. But yes, you too. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. If you think of a question later, of course, feel free to email me. Otherwise, what I'm going to do, I'm going to minimize my video. And I will hang out for a little while. If you think of anything, feel free to ask. What is Access? Who I speak with? Okay, great question. So if you have any kind of learning disability or need extra accommodations for anxiety or anything along those lines, our disability center on campus is called Access. So let's see here. Let's go together to, I'm going to bring this up here. If you go to the Moorpark College homepage. I'm just going to bring this up to help you with that question here. And you go to students. So here on this page, if you go to student services, there's all sorts of different services that are available for students, things that might be helpful. So if you scroll down right here, here is access. It's one of the first ones. These are listed alphabetically. So if you were to click on this, it brings up their phone number, their email. You can give them a call. Might be nice to reach out to them. They're open 8 to 5 or 8 to noon on Friday. And here's all their contact information. So if you need any kind of accommodations for exams, for example, that's probably the number one thing that people get help with. You can qualify oftentimes for extended timing or other services that they have as well, like an audio version of a book or so on. So again, this is on the Moorpark College homepage. If you click on students, and then one of the first options is to click on this access. Okay, and hopefully that's something that's helpful for you. A lot of people do use this service, and to get accommodations, it doesn't hurt, right? If you need a little bit of extra time or a little bit of extra help, it might be helpful for you. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you asked, and hopefully it's helpful. Definitely give them a call, and you could see if you could get any additional help with exams and so on. Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. And again, I'll hang out for a little bit here if you do have any questions. Otherwise, if you don't, you are, of course, welcome to go. Yes, Apple products do. I'm glad that you said that. Apple products have a text-to-speech option in settings that you often utilize. Go into settings and type speech controller. Oh, I love that. That's a really great suggestion. And that might be something worth checking out. There's a lot of free software programs that will allow you to do that, but a lot of people have phones, and that's a very nice, easy option. Thank you so much for the suggestion. You too. Have a wonderful day. Jess, I don't think so. Let's see here. So I'm looking at your name right now. So notice if you look in the chat, let me pull this over here so you can see it. If you look in the chat here at your name has that little Twitch crown next to it. So you need to do one more step in order to have it recognized. See how these other people up here have the little football cake next to their names? So if you have the football cake next to your name, that means you have done that last step. So what you're going to want to do is go to Twitch. So if I go to Twitch here, I have to show you on somebody else's channel, but I'd be happy to do that here. So let me show you really fast. So let me click on one. I follow a bunch of different football people. So let me go to a football channel here. And then when you're on here, what you'll want to do is right underneath my name. So pretend this was my site. There's this little purple bar right here where it says subscribe 20% off. Again, please don't ever pay for this. But if you click on the down arrow all the way at the bottom, you can click right here where it says use Prime sub. So if you click on that box, see how it has the little crown, and then you click subscribe for free with Prime, what will happen is it will pop up on our chat here. It'll say that you subscribe for free with Prime, and then that little football cake will pop up next to your name. So that's the last step. There's a couple of you who didn't do that last step, and so if you can do that, that would be fantastic. That will get you to the point where I can track your attendance. I hope that's helpful. I know it's a couple of steps to do, but once you do it, then you're all set for 30 days, and then it's a really quick, easy renew every 30 days. Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. All right, so it looks like there's only like one or two people that are left on here. So I'm going to log out here in just a moment. But if you do think of any other questions, feel free to email me throughout the week. I am here and I'd be happy to help. And if you run into anything at all, again, feel free to reach out. But I get going on the materials for this week, especially the exam. And I will hope to see a lot of you next Tuesday morning for our week number 3 live stream.